Hey everybody, Scout Crafty here again. It's Wednesday. We're back in the shop. I have a tool that you've seen before. I'm sure you have. It's not a rare tool, but maybe you haven't seen this variant of this tool. So let's check it out. I'm a big fan of Bridgeport tools from Bridgeport, Connecticut. This here catalog is a reprint of a 1925 catalog from the Bridgeport Hardware Manufacturing Corporation. And their catalogs, look at the factory they had. A really high quality company, was in business for a long time. The catalog was amazing. You know, I do a lot of whenever I come across Bridgeport tools, but what I really enjoy about these catalogs is the graphic, the illustrations. You know, these were all done in like a pencil ink style, and even though they're not photographed and they're not colorized, they're so inviting, and their descriptions of all the tools, it's just a beautiful catalog to look through. And they have 1925 was a great year for all kinds of tooling because the quality was unmatched. It was really good. And when you bought something back then and you spent your hard-earned money, you wanted something that was going to last. So they have a really nice catalog that they put out back then. I wish they would do that stuff today. You know, the catalogs today are just kind of junkish. But what we're going to talk about today is, you've seen me do this before, the Box Terrier crate opener. Also, they also had the Knox Tox over here. Here you go, Knox Tox crate. Those two are the most popular that you see. Then sometimes you'll see the Hooker crate opener, which looks like this one here. And I personally never liked these too much because this was kind of dangerous. You know, this had that hook here, and when you're using it, unless you're using it for that purpose where you're going to use this all the time, this was, you know, I don't know. I preferred the regular ones compared to the Hooker ones. But here's what I find interesting. When you talk about the crate opener here, it says how it came. It says natural steel finish, polished claw, which is what we like to do here, natural steel polished, but also had nickel plated and buffed, and then it had, you know, the prices according. So they came either nickel plated and buffed or natural steel finish and polished, which, you know, and now I came across a rare one. Now, they're not, like I said, these aren't rare, they're not expensive, but one of them is unusual, and you don't often see. All the crate tools and pry bars that you see coming out of Bridgeport at flea markets and garage sales and things like that, this is the most rare. And you can see here it says patent applied for, and you can see here it's called the RIPPER from the Bridgeport hardware, and that's because it's got this little attachment here. You know, it was obviously looks like it was forged down or something, but, and you can see compared to a normal head, you know, you can see what they did. They squished it down and made it into something that you could, you know, I guess with using some force, insert into wood and pull it apart, or maybe if you sharpened it up, you can use, I don't know. But I've never seen one of these before. I picked it up on eBay. Not like I said, not an expensive or crazy rare item, but you don't usually see these. So it's got a little mushroom head. It's got some use. This was the nickel polished finish. You could see some remnants of the nickel. Nickel was never a durable finish. That's why they did away with it. You know, as soon as chromium came out, they did away with nickel. Nickel is, I mean, it has a nice warm lustery look when it's untouched, but as soon as you start handling it or using it, the nickel wears off, it rusts, and I'm not a big fan of the nickel finish. But, and you can see the forging marks here, you know, pretty thick here, but I'm going to do what I do with these, and let's see what we can. Before we start, I want to point out, look at the face. See the face? Look at the top. See that big seam line there? And underneath, see the seam line continues all along. So these are things you have to determine. And there's a little bit of a bend. You see that little bit of a bend to the right here on this? So these are things that, you know, you have to always remember and address, because you won't. The base looks pretty good. Looks like there wasn't a lot of work done, heavy work with this bar. A little bit of a chip over here. See that? Okay, we're good. Now, using the flapper disc, remember it had all these little nicks and dings and dents and mushroom. This is what you want after the flapper disc. Now, I could tell you, you don't want to go any further down because you're going to go to the flat belt sander, and you want to make sure you keep this level and you keep the lines correct. But that's what it should look like after the flapper sander, and we'll straighten this out with the belt sander. So like I said, you don't want to go too aggressive. You just want to get rid of all that damage and all this mushrooming and things like that. Okay, everything's coming along nicely as planned. We have it, this is all done with the flapper wheel. Now, you have to be very careful because you have some here, like this patent apply for. We can't go, you just want to just graze over it. You don't want to do it, you wait till you get to the flat belt because that helps maintain it. You don't want to take any of that off. But here's the problem we have with the ripper part. You see here, you see how, you notice I didn't, it's much nicer here and here than it is here. I don't go over this because that lettering isn't that deep and it'll take it right off. And we want to keep that. So what I'm doing now is I made a little, like a kind of a graver, an engraving tool. I just took one of these flooring nails. They're super hard. And I made a little tip on it here, as you can see. And what I'm doing now is I'm going over the letters. And you can see I just did the top of the R, and I'm going to stamp over the letters and try and make this a little bit more legible before I try and get the rest of this out of here, because I don't want to lose that. So I'm kind of re-engraving it. Now you know my favorite part. Remember what this looked like before we started. And we're calling this project done. Your hands are always tied when you got this lettering in here. But I was able to keep most of it. It says Ripper just like it was. And if you look close, Bridgeport, some of the Connecticut came off. But this is what you deal with, You have to make up your mind. You see the top, what it looks like, and the face, what we're saying, and the underside. And it's polished, When I say, and we were able to keep the patent applied for focus. And when I say polished, it is mirrored all along the wrench. So it's just a nice wrench. And I wondered what they look like when they were nickel plated. I'm sure they look pretty close to this when you can get them new, But the nickel didn't hold up good. I think the polished steel is a much better finish. And the blade. Now I wonder if this was sharpened down here more, or I kept it. It'll go through a cardboard box or something. But I wondered how. And as far as straightening it out, we're able to straighten it out a little bit. I didn't want to go crazy because I'm always afraid if that would have snapped off, that would have made this wrench, valueless. Not that it has any real value, but anyway. Hope you enjoyed this one, and let's see what else we got. Okay, next up, you remember on Monday's video, we were talking about the skate and the crate scooters, but I have to tell you, a lot of people are talking about their first introduction to skateboarding through that, because, the crate scooter would eventually lose their crate, and then you would have a skateboard, one of the early ones. But skateboarding was actually invented in the late 50s. They were over in California. Guys were taking their surfboards and strapping skates with boards underneath and using their surfboards. They were called longboard skateboards. And that's a whole different kind of skateboarding than we were used to or see now, with the trick skateboarding. But I wanted to reintroduce the Scouts to it in the 80s and 90s. So I got, and longboarding is a lot of fun. And it's not as dangerous as skateboarding is, because, you're dealing with a longer board and you tend to just go down not so steep hills and just enjoy the ride. Whereas the shorter skateboards were meant for tricks and things like that. I was reintroduced to skateboarding because I wanted to teach some of the Scouts who never, I had boys in there that were, like I said, 11 to 17. They never skateboarded before. So I made a couple boards and brought it down. And let me show you some of them. First of all, here are some of the short boards from the early days. Okay, up here near my attic, we have some of my storage, the old radio controlled, remember control line aircraft, and here's some old RC planes. This was back when RC was just, remember the Flight of the Phoenix? That was like a great movie, wasn't it? But we're up here to look at early skateboards. Back in the early 60s, this roller derby, see that roller derby? Deluxe 20-inch skateboard. Had the old clay wheels. I mean, this was something. And look, it just looked like a regular plank of a board. They probably slapped some kind of shellac on there and it was good to go. In about 1973, see the little kicktail up there? Plus they added, this here is a Panther. Nice little board here, huh? And this urethane wheels. They were new in 72. They were invented, but they also, look at this. This is a, like a urethane deck, and it's red. I wonder why I was attracted to that. Here we have another early board. Again, poly, some kind of plastic deck. I don't even know what this is, what this says, but I know this one was made in Texas. You could see here. What's that? Nash Manufacturing in Texas. And it had the urethane wheels on it too. Same thing, but this is where things were going in the 70s. Now, those were the short boards, and for the longer boards, that's the ones that are great to learn on and a lot of fun, less dangerous. Let me show you something you don't usually see. These are the steps coming down to my basement, and here's where I have my long boards, and I have them here because just in case I have to get out of town in a hurry. No, it's just a storage spot. So this here is a 40-inch. A 48-inch black 29. This was a company that was just starting off to make long boards, and it was a lot of scouts learned to skateboard on that. I have a long 60-inch board there that I made, and that one, that's a big heavy board. I usually made them out of maple or sometimes some exotic woods. Here's a Marine Corps board I made that I used to just bring these down, and so this way the kids didn't have to wait for one board. This was a Gravity. This is a commercial made. And this one here is a one I made. Is called a Tracker. I made that for off-road use. Pretty interesting though. Now, I was running the program in the for the scouts to learn how to skateboard in the auditorium of the school, and it had a beautiful polyurethane floor, and they spent a lot of money on it. And I didn't want to make scuff marks, so I had to use certain wheels and everything that we could use. But I came up with a couple prototype boards because with the long boards, the biggest problem is stopping. That's the hardest part because, you know, you basically take them on a hill or whatever and you pick up speed real quick. So stopping was a problem. I came up with this. Okay, this was a prototype board that I made. Basically, the biggest part, the hardest part of longboarding is stopping, you know, and especially when you're going down a hill pretty fast. And this was a brake that I incorporated into a board. And you can see how simple it's made. It's just basically two strap hinges here, and it has a bumper on the bottom. And what you would do is you would pull up on this cord when you were riding down. It had an elastic band here that eventually, you know, it's just weakened over age, but you can replace that. But as you were riding down the hill, if you want to stop, you would just pull up on this. This is an old lawnmower puller, and you would just pull up on this. The bumper would scrape along the floor and bring you to a stop. So it was great for the younger scouts that were afraid to jump off the board when it was moving. And lastly, this was my pride and joy. I made this towards the end of my skateboarding career. This is beautiful, huh? What it is, it's an old water ski from the 50s, and they use some real beautiful wood bend. They use teak and other water-resistant woods and things like that. And what it was, I took this old water ski and I got some nice trucks on there with some beautiful wheels. I mean, this was just a great riding board, and it's got a camber to it, if you could see. So that was kind of came along later on. It's got a slight bow to it so that when you step on it, it was very it was just a beautiful board, and it even looks just still nice today, huh? And that one was made, I guess, I don't know, these were all done about 20 years, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, something like that. But very interesting how these old boards still hold up today. So in closing, sorry about that trip down memory lane, but once I get started, I can't stop. Anyway, I hope you have a nice day. Take care now. Bye-bye.